Why is there a person buried in the garden? What? After taking a moment to comprehend, I reflexively covered my daughter's mouth. Of all things, she had to speak up in a situation like this. Today was a joyous day celebrating the new house. If my daughter said something out of line and embarrassed Ruby, I had no idea what she might do to her. My brother's words echoed in my head. Ruby has a temper. For a moment I thought it was all over, but somehow I managed to smooth things over. Later we enjoyed a pleasant time and I began preparing to head home with my parents. My daughter was crouched in front of the flower bed, talking to something. Curious, I slowed my pace and ran over to her side. Then, in the next instant, I saw Ruby swinging a baseball bat down hard towards my daughter's head. "Sarah," I reached out desperately. "I am Yvonne, 35 years old. I live with my 5-year-old daughter, Sarah. My husband, who is the same age as me, is currently working away, and we only meet a few times a year. Even if it's for work, it's lonely. Luckily, my parents' house is close to our place, just about a 5-minute drive away. Because of this, my daughter and I often visit my parents. They adore Sarah and always welcome us, but there were a couple of issues when visiting my parents' house. First, there's this problem. Yvonne, you're here again? Isn't that too often? There's no point in you being married off." My bad. Those sharp words came from Ruby, my sister-in-law. Not only my parents, but also my older brother and his wife, who is my sister-in-law, were living in the family home. It was supposed to be a temporary arrangement, as my brother Eugene had bought a plot of land and was in the middle of building a new house. So, until it was finished, they were staying at my parents' place. Even if your husband is away, don't you think you're relying on your parents too much? Ruby, who is a year older than me, might not be a bad person, but she is assertive and a bit snide. That's why I've disliked her, ever since she started dating my brother. Honestly, even now that they're married, I don't understand what my brother sees in her. I never understood why she was so hard on me, her sister-in-law. Moreover, she doesn't seem to like children much, especially having it out for my daughter. "Grandma, let's play." As Sarah took my mother's hand and started bouncing, Ruby made an obviously displeased face. Oh, it's so exhausting when Sarah comes over, because she's so noisy. "Yvonne, you really should discipline her more. It'll cause problems in the future." Such remarks were made. Such remarks made me feel uncomfortable. I only came because Sarah wanted to see her grandparents, but every time Ruby's words gave me a headache. The second issue was about my daughter, Sarah. She has a strange ability to see things not visible to ordinary people and to sense certain things. At first, we couldn't believe it. But when we found lost items exactly where she said they would be, among other slightly eerie incidents, we started to believe. This was a family secret, so we had kept it hidden from Ruby. I never imagined it would come out in such a way. The long cohabitation was finally coming to an end. My brother and his wife's new house was finished, and they were going to move out immediately. I've been looking forward to this. Living together was tough. Ruby whispered to me and I could only give a wry smile. It wasn't just tough for her, it was also tough for me. I was relieved that my parents' home was finally going to be a place of peace. My daughter looked at me curiously and asked, "Mom, why do you act differently in front of Ruby? You're so laid back with Grandma and Eugene." I explained, "Well, you see, Eugene and I grew up together, but Ruby just recently became part of our family through marriage." My daughter still seemed unconvinced, so I added, "Sorry, was that confusing?" She replied, "No, I got it. But it's a shame, isn't it?" As I cocked my head, Sarah nodded affirmatively and said, "It's such a shame. We finally became a family, and now we're going to be separated again soon." I was taken aback by her conviction and asked, "What do you mean?" Sarah explained, "Separated. Could it be that Eugene and his wife are going to divorce?" While it would be a relief for me, I would feel sorry for Eugene if he were to be upset. After all, they had just finished building their new house, and now to think they could divorce so soon. I couldn't make heads or tails of it, so I just made Sarah promise not to talk about it elsewhere and decided not to dwell on it. Sometime after Eugene and his wife moved, we were invited to their house for the housewarming. We wrapped a nice sum of money as a gift, and the 5 of us, including my parents, Sarah, and myself, headed over. Eugene's house was about a 20-minute drive from our parents' place. Since my compact car was too small for all of us, we had to ask my father to drive his car. It was an old manual transmission, which made me nervous, but my father is a safer driver than I am, so it should be fine. To me, not being able to drive a stick shift is pretty impressive. When we arrived, the first thing that struck me was the sheer beauty of the place. It was a brand new build indeed. The exterior alone was overwhelming, the yard was spacious, and there were even brand new flowers planted. Brand new flower bed near the bay window. There weren't any flowers planted yet, just soil, but it was impressive nonetheless. Wow, it's so big. Sarah was gleefully running around the yard, shrieking with delight. Hey, Sarah? As I attempted to chase after her, Eugene stopped me. Let her be. If she wants to play in the big yard, that's fine. Oh, thanks. Taking Eugene's word for it, I halted. I kept an eye on Sarah to make sure she didn't stray too far. As long as she was in the yard, she wouldn't get lost or bother anyone. I found myself idly thinking how nice it would be to have a house. That's when Ruby came over, glaring sharply at us from a distance. Hey, Yvonne, you should be watching Sarah properly. Oh, did she do something? Sarah had been running around, but she hadn't bumped into anything or broken anything. I didn't recall anything that should have caused an upset, but Ruby was angry. Do you normally let kids run wild at someone's housewarming? Don't you think it's bothersome? My apologies. Eugene said it was okay, so I just went with it. That's just Eugene being too nice to say anything. Don't take it to heart. I couldn't afford to upset Ruby any further. I had seen Eugene getting tossed around by Ruby's tantrums many times before. Sorry about that. I'll make sure she behaves. I went after Sarah, who had just darted past. Sarah? Chasing after her, I found her squatting by the flower bed, staring intently at the flower bed. All that meets the gaze is dirt. No flowers have bloomed yet. What could be so interesting? Sarah? What are you doing? When I call out from above, my daughter looks up at me and says, "Why is there a person buried in the garden?" What? After a moment to grasp what she said, I reflexively covered my daughter's mouth. Of all things, she had to say it here. It was a housewarming for my brother and his wife. It's supposed to be a happy occasion, but if Sarah says something out of line, it could smear mud out on Ruby's face. And if that happens, who knows what Ruby would do to her? Ruby has a temper. My brother's words come to mind. It seems my brother heard, but luckily, Ruby is engrossed in conversation with Mom and hasn't noticed. Look, Sarah, what a pretty house, isn't it beautiful? Let's go inside. I catch my brother's eye, his face a mix of emotions, and try to distract my daughter as we move. Of course, my hand remains over her mouth. But without any concern for my efforts, Sarah wriggles her face out from between my fingers and says, "Hey, Mom, it's weird. Why aren't we helping the person buried in the garden?" Sarah, it's fine. I'm gonna ask Eugene. Sarah slips away and runs to my brother. Grabbing his hand, she pulls him toward the flower bed. Seeing the expression on my brother's face, who knows Sarah's strength, is telling. Sarah, do you see something? Reaching the flower bed, Sarah looks up at my brother and tilts her head. Yeah. Eugene, don't you see? We have to help them quickly. They're asking for help, calling Ruby's name. This was unexpected for both my brother and me, and we inadvertently looked at each other. Ruby is still talking with Mom. Ruby's name? Yeah, right here. My brother and I step closer to the flower bed. On closer inspection, the soil where Sarah is pointing looks slightly different in color. It's as if someone had dug it up once before. Chills run down my spine as the thought crosses my mind. What do we do, Eugene? What to do? We can't just ignore what Sarah says. It's not that we should ignore it because it's a child's words, but because it's Sarah's words that we can't. My brother returns with a small gardening spade from the back of the house. It seems insufficient for digging, but it's all we have. When we tap the soil, it feels unnaturally hard, as if something has been firmly packed to hide it. My brother, perhaps frightened, is cautious and can't put much force into the spade. Impatient Sarah snatches the spade from him. Come on, Eugene, you're no good at this. I will do it. Sarah, hang on. I reach out to stop her, but Ruby grabs Sarah's wrist before I can. Having come over unnoticed, Ruby squats down to Sarah's level and smiles brightly. Hey Sarah, don't touch my precious flower garden. Relieved at Ruby's smiling face, I pull my daughter Sarah closer. That's right, Sarah. You can't just touch things without permission. Sorry, Ruby. No problem. But don't touch it again. Not ever. I feel a strange intensity coming from Ruby. I bow my head to her again, and try to make a getaway to my mother Yvonne with Sarah in tow. But at that moment, Sarah once again points at the flower bed and shouts, "Look! That person is watching Ruby over there." Hey Sarah, you're gonna scare Ruby with that kind of talk. Don't say things like that. Every time my daughter says something, before the people who heard it turned pale and trembled. I imagined Ruby must be terrified, having such things said about our brand new home. Sorry Ruby, it's just a misunderstanding by Sarah. Trying to make amends, I looked at Ruby's face. No matter how much I might dislike Ruby, I felt bad for frightening her. I thought I had to get my brother Eugene to smooth things over too. But when I saw Ruby's face, I caught my breath. Far from looking scared, her eyes were wide open and she looked angry. Sarah, is someone watching me? Yeah, they're asking for Ruby's help. Ruby just said, huh, and raised the corners of her mouth. Her eyes weren't smiling at all. For some reason, I found Ruby's face terrifying, and I shuddered. I'm sorry, Ruby. It's okay. It's just kid stuff. Eugene quickly stepped in between me and Ruby, and the situation settled for the moment. We went inside the brand new house with our parents, and they let us sit on the brand new couch. Wow, it's so cushy. It seems Sarah's spirits had lifted in the new house as she happily sank into the couch. She seemed to have completely forgotten the earlier incident, and I felt relieved. We then ordered some takeout sushi, chatting and eating. Sarah must have been exhausted from all the excitement. Before we knew it, she'd fallen asleep on the couch. Would you like to put her to bed upstairs? Should Eugene carry her? Really? Thank you. That would be good. We still have quite a while before we head back. It might be better than letting her sleep in the bustling living room. At first, I thought so, but then I had a bad feeling. I think it's okay. She might feel lonely waking up alone. Oh, she's already 5, right? She'll be fine. She can sleep here. Yvonne, you're a bit overprotective, huh? Ruby murmured that, and smoothly rejoined the conversation with my brother and parents. Despite the short exchange, I couldn't stop sweating. After a while, Sarah woke up. It's about time to leave. We agreed with our dad and started to get ready to go home. As I was cleaning up the table and washing the cups, my bored daughter tugged on my clothes. Hey Mom, are we going yet? Just a bit longer, okay? We'll leave soon. You're slow. Maybe it's because she just woke up, but Sarah seemed a bit cranky. I didn't want to deal with a tantrum right now, so I decided to hand it over to my mother. Mom, can you please rinse these? Sarah is getting grumpy. My mother came running over, but Ruby blocked her. Then how about Sarah and I play in the yard while we wait? The yard? Let's go. My daughter thrilled at the thought of going outside. More than that, I was surprised that Ruby invited her to play. She isn't supposed to like kids, yet there I was, puzzled but thankful. Thanks, Ruby. But we're about to head home. It's just until you leave. It's fine. Come on, let's go, Sarah. Yeah. Sarah cheerfully responded and took Ruby's hand and they left. It's strange. Ruby's not keen on children, Eugene said with a stunned face watching them go. I know, right? Ruby and my daughter have met many times, but I've never seen them play together. Sarah isn't shy with strangers and would happily approach Ruby, but I thought Ruby always kept her distance. Yet today, Ruby was the one who did the inviting. Something didn't feel right to me. I'm gonna go outside too. I rushed out in a hurry. Sarah was squatting in front of the flower bed, talking about something. Ruby was nowhere to be seen. Curious, I slowed down my pace and ran over to her. The next moment, I saw Ruby swing a baseball bat at Sarah's head with all her might. It was a close call. I grabbed my daughter's arm and we both fell backwards. A metallic clang echoed through the yard. The bat had struck right where Sarah had been, just seconds before. Hearing the sound, Eugene and my parents came outside. What was that noise? Eugene asked, concerned. Ruby? Eugene, seeing Ruby holding the bat, was shocked. My heart was pounding as I hugged Sarah tightly. That was too close. If I had been a moment later, Sarah could have been seriously injured. Silently, I looked up at Ruby. Her expression was angry or maybe emotionless. What happened? Eugene asked, suspicious. Ruby, she tried to hit Sarah with a bat. What? I can't believe it. Eugene stepped closer to Ruby in disbelief. Is it true? Ruby, why would you do that? Ruby just smirked. Come on, Ivan. It was just a joke. Anger flooded over me and I snapped back. A joke? What are you talking about? If that had hit her, do you have any idea what could have happened? It wouldn't have just been an injury. As I was speaking, I realized something horrific. The end of the baseball bat was stained with something dark red. Noticing my gaze, Ruby let out a breath. Sarah was the one who started it, wasn't she? She shouldn't have said what she did. What? Before my eyes were involuntarily drawn to the flower bed. Dad, could it really be that beneath there was a person buried, just as my daughter had said? Fear made my teeth chatter. My brother, concerned, kept me and Sarah away from Ruby. What's this all about, Ruby? It's nothing serious, just a joke. Maybe I went a little too far. My brother stared at Ruby for a moment and then decisively went to the back of the yard. He grabbed a small shovel and began to dig up the flower bed that Sarah had pointed out earlier. Hey, Eugene, what are you doing? Ruby tried to stop him, but she was no match for my brother's strength. He kept on digging. When he had dug a fair amount, he was speechless and clutched his head. Ruby also collapsed weakly beside him. Eugene, Ivan, call the cops. After that, just hurry, get Sarah, and go home. From my brother's unusual demeanor, I realized that my daughter's words were indeed true. My brother had found something that Sarah had mentioned. I immediately called the police. Surprisingly, Ruby was subdued until the police arrived. She was repeating "it's all over" as if in a daze, but she didn't become furious or try to run away. After the police arrived, I decided to stay with my brother, while leaving my daughter with my parents. My mother was too scared to accompany him. My father offered to stay, but then we would be without a driver. My brother said, "I'm okay alone," but that couldn't be true. I couldn't leave my brother by himself. Sarah, listen to Grandma and Grandpa and wait here, okay? Okay. Mommy, take care of Eugene too. Sure. I couldn't tell how much my daughter understood, but I promised her with a smile. My brother seemed to be talking calmly with the officer. I watched from a corner of the yard so as not to be in the way. Suddenly, Ruby's voice rose in anger. I've told you. I don't know anything. All right. For now, let's go to the office and you can tell us everything there. You're just trying to pin this on me. I refuse to go. The officer looked perplexed by Ruby's outburst. A female officer tried to grab Ruby's arm, but she shook her off and hid behind my brother. Eugene, help me. My brother was flustered, holding Ruby's shoulder. He neither hugged her nor pushed her away. I could feel his conflict. I didn't do anything wrong. It's a false accusation. My brother probably wanted to believe Ruby's words. But just a moment ago, Ruby had swung a baseball bat at Sarah. Probably because if what was buried was revealed, she'd have trouble sealing the deal. Ruby, if you're innocent, let's just go to the office for now, I suggested. Ruby glared at me sharply. No. What if the cops force a confession out of me? Tell that to Eugene. Well, that's my brother is probably still half in doubt. He just can't seem to turn Ruby away. But in reality it was buried. Just by chance, right? It just happened to be someone buried there. We just unluckily bought this place. It's none of our business. Hearing Ruby's words, I grabbed my brother's arm and involuntarily pulled him towards me. Ruby, how do you know about this? Duh, because Sarah told us. I shook my head slightly. Sarah only said there was a person there. She didn't mention any gender or age. Ruby's mouth fell open in a small O and her face turned pale. We hadn't been told by the police what had been buried yet, so the only person who would know was the one who buried it. But just when I'm about to finally be happy, he had to come and ruin everything. All I wanted was to live a peaceful life with Eugene. Ruby looked up at my brother pleadingly. My brother, holding Ruby's shoulders, shook his head in anguish. I'm sorry, but this is just too much to handle. But you said you loved me. I'm sorry. Ruby was trembling. It was so close. I was so close to living as a classy homemaker in our new home. Her hysterical screaming was frightening. Ruby was then taken away by the police. All I could do was silently stroke my brother's back as he shook with sobs. Later, we got a shocking call from the police. The person buried was Ruby's cheating partner. They had been involved for years, and he had provided financial support. When he learned of Ruby's upcoming marriage, he tried to interfere. "Give me back all the money I've spent on you, or I'll tell your husband everything," that's what he threatened. In a panic and not wanting to be exposed, Ruby acted rashly. The flower bed had just been refilled with soft soil, making it an easy place to bury something. Ruby must have thought it safer to keep the body within sight, rather than risking discovery in the mountains. Naturally, Ruby was arrested. My brother debated waiting for her to reform, but ultimately they divorced. He couldn't forgive her for almost harming Sarah as well. He was devastated for a while, but slowly began to return to his old self. Unfortunately, he decided to sell the new house, but it was hard to sell due to its history. He kept thanking his daughter. If Sarah hadn't noticed, who knows what would have happened. Ruby certainly wouldn't have confessed. My brother joked self-deprecatingly about his poor judgment in women. Now he has moved back into our parents' house. I visit every weekend, and they seem to be getting along well. This time it was all thanks to Sarah's sharp eye, but we had enough. So we made a pact not to talk about seeing anything or anyone around others. She promised cheerfully, but as a parent I hope her peculiar ability fades over time. "Get out of here by today, you old hag." Karen made a shooing gesture. As I was getting annoyed, Mike cut in. "Listen, don't leave a single piece of trash behind." That was the last straw for me. Sighing, I muttered in response, "Okay." Then I turned my back on the two of them. If you get caught cheating, you normally apologize, right? Why are they being so defiant about it? And they're telling me to leave because they want to live together. That's just ridiculous. They keep saying things that suit them, but do they not think I have incriminating evidence against them? Well, if that's the case, I don't mind. They should enjoy themselves while they can. I'll just continue preparing my revenge. I smirked to myself as I headed to my room. My name is Michelle Ogden. I've been married to my husband Mike for nearly 20 years. At 48, I work from home in design, and Mike, 2 years my senior, is thriving as a systems engineer. Our son, Nick, was born right after we got married and is now 19 years old and a respectable college student. You might imagine a happy family hearing this, but in reality, it's not the case. Lately, I've been suspicious of Mike's behavior. On weekends, he sneaks out of the house. Even on weekdays, he comes home pretty late, and when he's at home, he never answers the phone in front of me. It's clear as day that he's cheating. If he's cheating, I guess divorce is the only option. Lately, I find myself thinking this more and more. Looking back, Mike's attitude changed a few years ago. It was when Nick was in middle school and our expenses started to pile up. Despite this, Mike's salary was gradually decreasing. When I asked why, Mike said the economy's bad and the company's struggling. There wasn't much I could do. I cut back on our living expenses, but that wasn't enough. So I thought about getting a job and discussed it with Mike. You know, I'm thinking of getting a part-time job. We're short on cash? There are Nick's tutoring fees. Nick's tutoring fees were too high. I confided in Mike about our financial struggles. Then suddenly he became angry. "It's because you're wasting money." I was taken aback by Mike's behavior. Sure, we had argued a few times before, but this was completely different from anything I had experienced with him. Even though I sensed something was off, I retorted, "I don't waste money." "So you're just a loser, huh?" Everyone's so incompetent. He continued to complain about how everyone at his company couldn't do their jobs right. He even had to help with sales, he grumbled. In the end, I gave up on discussing the matter with him. Then, a former colleague from the company I worked at before our marriage, who had recently started her own business, contacted me asking for help. It had been over a decade since I left that job when I got married. There was a bit of a gap, but I couldn't miss this opportunity. I eagerly accepted her offer. That's how I started working from home in design. Of course, I told Mike about it, but he just said okay and didn't seem very interested. He barely listened to what I had to say. Nevertheless, I had officially informed him. I continued my work with pride. Then, on a certain weekday, While I was working, Nick unexpectedly came home. And home. What's up? Why are you home at this time? It was just past noon. At that time, Nick was in middle school. He should have had classes until the evening and then club activities. There was no way he should be home at this hour. Didn't I tell you today's the start of midterms? I suddenly remembered. Looking at the calendar, it indeed had tests written on it. I forgot. I'll get lunch ready right away. I hurried to prepare Nick's lunch. Then from behind, Nick asked, "Mom, were you working?" "Huh? Your laptop is out, and there are all these documents." Nick was pointing at my work documents and laptop I had left on the living room table. "Oh, sorry. I'll clean it up right away." "No, it's okay. You can do it later. But there's something I want to talk to you about." Nick ran to his room and soon returned with his tablet. "I'm making a game. I want to be an engineer like Dad." Nick showed me the game he had been creating on his tablet. It wasn't as polished as commercial games, but it was impressive nonetheless. "That's amazing. I want to go to a vocational school. Do you think Dad would agree?" "If you show him this, I'm sure he'll support you." I wholeheartedly supported Nick, but our hopes were soon shattered. When Mike saw Nick's game, he harshly criticized it. "This is a joke, right?" "But no, it's totally useless. I could make this in 10 minutes. Mike laughed mockingly. I was furious at his reaction. To a systems engineer like Mike, Nick's game might seem like child's play. Offering professional advice is one thing, but mocking it is unacceptable. As I was about to complain, Mike continued to Nick. "If you have time to play around like this, you should be studying more. Think before you speak." When I interjected, Mike got annoyed. "What? Do you have a problem with my parenting?" "Yes, I do. You should respect our son's independence more." "Huh? Usually it's the wife's job to educate the kids. If you did your job right, we wouldn't be having this issue." Mike raised his voice. I clammed up in the moment. It was useless arguing with him. I had to help Nick myself. In the end, I just listened to Mike's complaints in silence. I waited for his anger to subside. The next day, when Mike was not around, I said to Nick, "Nick, I'll buy you a computer for your game development studies." "Really?" "Yes. If your dad says anything, I'll say it's for my work." With this, I bought an expensive desktop computer for Nick, paying for it myself. Mike looked skeptical, but I asserted it was for my work. This incident gradually strained the relationship between Mike and me. I've been contemplating divorce, but it's not easy to bring it up because of Nick. These days, I've been feeling quite unsettled. On the other hand, Nick went off to college. He said he wanted to study his specialty in college and thought his dad wouldn't object. Nick had grown up to be quite clever. Maybe I can manage even if we get divorced. As I was thinking this, Nick came home from college one day. "Mom, listen." "What's up, Nick?" I stopped my work and looked up. Nick's face was noticeably pale. I felt anxious about what might have happened. Finally, Nick hesitantly began to speak. "I saw Dad cheating." "Dad's cheating?" When I asked for clarification, Nick elaborated. Nick's story went like this. He was heading to a lecture at college earlier, but then a friend informed him the class was canceled. So they decided to hang out downtown. That's when he saw Mike walking arm in arm with a young woman. Nick pretended not to notice because his friends were there, but he couldn't bear it and came home. I'm sorry, if it weren't for my friends, I would have confronted him on the spot. That would have been tough. I understood Nick's difficulty. Putting that aside, I was already aware of Mike's infidelity. Reflecting on it, Mike had been acting oddly recently. He leaves early on weekends and comes home late on weekdays. He talks on the phone secretly when he's at home. It was impossible not to suspect something. That's why I had already requested an investigation into Mike's behavior. I already had the results. When I told this to Nick, he looked surprised and asked me, "So you were calm about it? Are you gonna divorce?" Well, the investigation results were positive, so probably. "Okay, if that's your decision, I won't say anything." That made things easier. I intended to confront Mike when he came home that night, but he didn't return. He must have realized Nick had seen him. Mike finally came back the following Sunday, bringing an unfamiliar young woman with him. "So this is the mistress." As I was thinking, the woman introduced herself, saying, "Hello, I'm Karen." I've been dating Mike. Her insincere greeting infuriated me. Mike then spoke to me saying, so I'm going to live with Karen. We're getting a divorce, so please leave. I asked what's the reason. Mike smirked and replied, a smart guy like me deserves a young girl, not an old lady like you. I couldn't believe his audacity, but calmly responded, oh really? That's exactly what I wanted. I replied with sarcasm. Then Karen, looking irritated, pointed at me and said, an old lady like you acting all high and mighty? Think you can live alone? Unfortunately for you, I work, so I'll be fine. Then let's get divorced quickly. Karen took a divorce form from her pocket and tossed it at my feet, saying, I'll make sure to get alimony from both of you. Karen frowned in displeasure at my words. Meanwhile, Mike was grinning, waiting. I signed the divorce papers and handed them to Mike. At that moment, Karen said triumphantly, get out by today, you old hag. By today, and get rid of all your stuff. It's just in the way around the house. Karen made a shooing gesture. As I grew angry, Mike cut in saying make sure not to leave a single piece of trash behind. That was the final straw. I sighed and muttered in response, okay. Then I turned my back on the two of them. When caught cheating, people normally apologize, right? Why are they being so defiant and telling me to leave? Because they want to live together? That's just ridiculous. They've always said things that suit them, but do they not think I hold incriminating evidence? Well, if that's how it is, I don't mind. They better enjoy themselves while they can. I'll keep preparing my revenge. Smirking, I headed to my room. Before packing my belongings, I called the junk removal service. After arranging for them to collect the junk, I started packing. After a while, Nick returned home. I could hear Mike and Nick talking in the living room. But soon they started arguing. It's because Dad cheated. Shouldn't you apologize to Mom first? Shut up. It's none of your business. After their conversation died down, it became quiet. Peeking into the living room, I saw only Nick. Nick? Where's your dad? They left on a trip together. They're ridiculous. Nick stamped his foot. I felt relieved. With Mike gone, I could do as I pleased. Now was my chance for revenge. I smiled at Nick and said, Nick, I'm divorcing and moving out. Will you come with me? Of course. Then start preparing for the move. And also, I shared a plan with Nick. Gearing it, he willingly started packing. Soon the junk removal guys arrived. I led them inside the house. Dispose of everything in these 2 rooms, the furniture and appliances. Everything? Even the new stuff? Yes, I'll buy new ones after moving. I asked them to dispose of the furniture and appliances in my room and Nick's. But not in the living room. Those were shared property with Mike. I didn't want to deal with complaints for disposing of them without permission. Anyway, I had them dispose of my things and those I bought. They'll regret it. Later that evening, I left the house. I entrusted my belongings to a moving company. I hadn't decided where to move yet, so I asked them to keep my stuff for a while. Nick and I moved to a nearby hotel. We planned to stay there temporarily. A few days later, during breakfast, Mike called. Hello? What's up? What do you mean? What's up? Did you really throw away the furniture and appliances? Huh? Of course. It was your idea, wasn't it? As I snapped back, Mike suddenly became tongue-tied, mumbling something indistinct. I scolded him. You said to throw them away. Don't complain now. Well, that's true. But he sounded hesitant. Of course he needed that thing. I knew what Mike was talking about. I knew what Mike was searching for and had deliberately said everything was disposed of. As I thought this, Mike started to grovel. Which company did you use for disposal? Why does that matter? Well, I'm looking for something. I smirked to myself, thinking just as I suspected. Then I asked him, feigning innocence, looking for something? The fridge, washing machine, and TV are all there, aren't they? Your stuff is untouched. No, not that. It's about a computer. Just as I thought. Mike was looking for the computer I bought for Nick. I hinted at it. A computer? I bought that for Nick. It's mine too, so I plan to dispose of it. You haven't disposed of it yet? His voice suddenly rose. Caught in my trap, I continued. Yes, I thought selling it on a marketplace app would be better. Please give me back that computer. It's mine. Why should I give it back? Mike was speechless. But this wasn't satisfying enough for revenge. So I made a proposition. How about this? Will you buy it from me? Buy it? Yes. I was planning to sell it anyway, so I'll sell it to you. Mike's voice brightened. Okay. It's used. How about $1,000? What? That's too low. Let's say $20,000. What? That's a ripoff. His voice grew louder in irritation. You don't have to buy it. Why do you want a used computer anyway? When I asked, Mike began to panic. Well, that's just... You could just buy a new computer, I suggested. Fine. I'll pay $20,000 for it. Sell it to me. Thrilled inside, I informed Mike that we had a deal. Later, Mike insisted on receiving the computer immediately, but I had left it with the movers. So I told him he'd have to wait until I settled into my new place. Despite his complaints, Mike reluctantly agreed. A few days later, I finally found a new place. With Nick's help, I moved into my new home. Right after that, Mike transferred the payment for the computer. I handed the money to Nick. Nick, use this money to start living on your own. I said, seeing it as a perfect opportunity. Nick began living alone in an apartment near his college. I eventually sent the computer to Mike's house. But I removed the external disk first. Then I sent that disk to Mike's company, along with a letter to his boss. Soon after, I received a call from Mike's boss, and was asked to visit his company on a specified day. At Mike's company, I announced my name at the reception and waited. A man slightly older than me appeared. Hello, I'm Smith, the department head. Are you Mrs. Ogden, the one who sent the letter? Yes, thank you for your time. Please come to my office, he said, leading the way. We reached his office, where a somber-looking Mike was seated on a sofa. Michelle, why are you here? Mike exclaimed, standing up suddenly. I'm here for my revenge, I said, smiling as Mike turned pale. Mr. Smith then intervened. Let's begin our discussion, he suggested, changing Mike's expression. Mike sat down, sweating, as Mr. Smith placed the external disk I sent on the table. First, I'd like to ask you, Mr. Ogden, what's this about? It was the one I had sent to him. Meanwhile, Mike quickly averted his gaze. I don't know what this is about, but this was sent by your ex-wife. Moreover, it contains our company's client data? Mr. Smith gave Mike a stern look. Mike began to stammer out an excuse. It must have gotten mixed in by accident. Our company strictly prohibits taking client data off-site. That's a mistake. Mike should just tell the truth. I was inwardly laughing. This was a little before Mike and I got divorced. He had been acting strangely. One day when I returned from shopping, Mike was inexplicably sitting in front of Nick's computer, in the living room. Of course, the pretense was that I used it, but there was no reason for Mike to use it, since he had his own computer in his room. Curious, I covertly watched him. He did something on it and then turned it off. I pretended not to notice and checked the computer's contents the next afternoon. There were unfamiliar data files written on the external disk. Looking inside, it was some kind of database. I had a sudden realization. Mike took company data home, using someone else's computer as a hiding place. Hello? I thought. Shortly thereafter, we got divorced, and I took the computer with me. Did Mike not expect me to dispose of it? Maybe he thought I would leave it behind, since Nick was using it. Regardless, Mike must be regretting it now. Looking at him, he seemed about to cry. What's going on? Speak clearly. I'm sorry. Mike finally admitted his guilt. Afterward, Mr. Smith scolded Mike severely. Then Mr. Smith said, taking company data is a theft crime or a violation of the Unfair Competition Prevention Act. What? No way. I'm gonna press charges. As soon as Mr. Smith said this, Mike burst into tears. He apologized to Mr. Smith. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. No way. You'll face both criminal and civil responsibilities. But oh no. Mike broke down crying. Watching Mike crumble in tears, I couldn't stop laughing inside. That's what you get for doing strange things. Serves you right. I was thinking about getting revenge for the infidelity when suddenly there was a knock on the door. Then a woman's voice. Did you call, Mr. Smith? Ah, yes, come in. I recognized that voice. As I was thinking, the door opened. Excuse me. Ah! I exclaimed as the woman entered. At the same time, she looked at me. Then she shouted, Huh! Why are you here? It was Karen who raised her voice. It's complicated. Shut up. This is no place for an old lady like you. She then quickly covered her mouth, noticing Mr. Smith's red face. Mr. Smith, clenching his jaw, gestured for Karen to sit down. She quietly sat where Mike had been. Once she was seated, Mr. Smith asked her, "So Karen, I have a question. You're planning to start your own business, right?" "Yes, in the same field as our company." Mr. Smith looked at her sternly. Feeling pressured, Karen answered hesitantly. Mr. Smith's conversation then reached a critical point. "You're also in charge of managing customer data, right? Is everything okay on your end?" Mr. Smith asked Karen. What do you mean?" Karen was sweating profusely. At that moment, I realized something. These two were in cahoots. They planned to take out the customer data together. In essence, here's what was happening. Mike and Karen both extracted customer data from their respective companies. Karen was to start her own business first, using that data, and then Mike would join her to run the business together. Once I understood their plan, it wasn't interesting anymore. Just trying to succeed using others' efforts. How pathetic. I sighed. Meanwhile, the conversation continued. Mr. Smith was pressing Karen. "I had my subordinates investigate, and it seems there has also been a data leak." Looks like you were involved, weren't you?" Karen looked down, but then raised her head to start making excuses. "No, it's not true. This is all because of Mr. Ogden." As she started to blame Mike, he got angry. He stood up and began complaining to Karen. "Blaming me? You are the one who started this. I don't know anything about that. You did this on your own." "What? You said you wanted to marry me, so I was disgusted by their petty excuses. I took out a document from my bag, placed it on the table, and addressed Mike and Karen, who were bickering. This is the result of your affair investigation. By the way, your girlfriend here has another boyfriend." "What?" Mike hurriedly grabbed the document on the table, which included a photo of Karen holding hands with another man. "Karen, what's this about? That's none of your business." "Shut up. You tricked me." Mike raised his voice. I couldn't help but comment on their ugly scene. "Younger men are obviously better than old guys like you." Mike suddenly became quiet, perhaps recalling what he had said to me earlier. "Well, anyway, you'll both have to take responsibility," Mr. Smith interjected. Wait a minute. This is a crime. Save your excuses for the police station." With Mr. Smith's stern words, Karen was left speechless. Afterward, the company pressed charges against Mike and Karen. They were soon arrested for theft and other charges. Additionally, the company filed a civil lawsuit for damages against them. Naturally, Karen's plan to start her own business was ruined. Her boyfriend apparently left her too. Now, both charged with theft and violations of the Unfair Competition Prevention Act, they're busy making excuses in court. But I doubt their excuses will hold up. The outcome of the trial will be interesting to watch. Even if they end up with a fine, I doubt they'll be able to pay it. I'm glad I got my alimony before all this happened. Meanwhile, I'm enjoying living alone. My design work is going well, and my income is stable. It seems Nick has a girlfriend now, and I'm looking forward to many exciting things. Maybe I'll have grandchildren causing a ruckus soon, but for now, I'm enjoying the quiet life. Tom said when we were engaged, but as soon as we got married, he completely changed. He and his son Mike started hurling verbal abuse at me every day. On top of that, he took control of our finances, skimping on household expenses. He would complain about every meal I cooked, even though he asked me to make them. Fed up, I declared divorce to Tom and left the house. Then one day I ran into Mike by chance. "Hey, I heard you're on welfare now," he said. I was taken aback. "What? You must be mistaking me for someone else." He smirked. "Come on, don't try to pretend." Mike twisted his mouth into a sneer. "Listen, you and I are done. Don't come crying to me about being broke, 'cause I'm not lending you a dime." Remember that. Before I could retort, he had vanished into the crowd. Feeling the stares of passers-by, I hung my head and shook my shoulders. I couldn't help but laugh. Poor thing. He doesn't know anything. I can't wait to see his reaction when he finds out the truth. I'm Susan, a 50-year-old housewife. I married Tom 5 years ago. When we first met, he seemed like a perfect gentleman. We met at a gathering of mutual acquaintances, and he was fun to talk to, very friendly, and seemed really nice. As we were parting, he said, "I'd like to meet just the two of us next time." I was feeling sad about saying goodbye, so I agreed. When we started dating, I learned he had a son named Mike from his previous marriage. Mike was in 5th grade then, and I had dinner with him a few times. He was a bright and nice kid, just like his father. A year later, Tom proposed to me, and I decided to open up to him. "I work part-time and live with my parents, right?" I asked. Actually, the company I joined right out of college was a nightmare, and it wrecked my health. "Is that so?" he asked. It was tough even quitting. "I don't think I can work long hours anymore." Then Tom smiled kindly. "Just stay at home without overdoing it. Look, I work for a big corporation. I'll work for both of us, no worries." Comforted by his words, I accepted his proposal. I truly thought I had found a good man and looked forward to a happy married life. Little did I know, in less than 6 months, I'd face utter despair. As we got used to living as a family of 3, Tom and Mike's behavior took a drastic turn. They started criticizing and mocking everything I said or did. "Mom's bedridden again? What about my lunch?" One morning, Mike came to my bedroom frowning in displeasure. I had fallen ill after participating in a community event at a local church the day before. It was an unseasonably hot day and I wasn't feeling well, so I had asked Tom to help, but he refused with an annoyed look. "Must be nice to be a stay-at-home mom. You can slack off all year. It's my rare day off, let me rest." I understand. Pushing myself to attend had resulted in being unable to get up the next morning. "I'm sorry, Mike. I couldn't prepare your lunch, so please buy something from Walmart." As I handed him the money, Mike grumbled discontentedly. "Mom, can't you at least make a decent lunch? You're always taking shortcuts with frozen food or leftovers from dinner." His words stung me deeply. "Don't blame your mom, Mike." Tom chimed in, passing by in the hallway with a half smirk. "With the effort she's saving on lunch, I bet dinner's going to be extravagant." "Ah, right. Should I expect something fancy like roast beef, or maybe crab and salmon roe shipped directly from Maine?" "I'm looking forward to it. As a full-time housewife, you've got plenty of time to spare for dinner, right? You're not sleeping all afternoon, I hope. And make sure to do the house cleaning thoroughly, no slacking off." Both of them chuckled at my exhausted state, threw out their unreasonable lines, and left. There's no way I can prepare such a luxurious meal. Lying in bed, I stared at the ceiling and let out a heavy sigh. The reason is simple. Tom is incredibly stingy. Despite being a department head in a major corporation and earning a substantial salary, the allowance he gives me is ridiculously meager. "It's my salary, so why should I let my wife manage it?" He argued after we got married. I didn't oppose him, quietly complying. I believed that as long as the household finances were managed properly, it didn't matter who was in charge. Then Tom started spending money recklessly. "It's necessary for work. Social drinking is a business expense. It's essential." While he splurges on expensive clothes and watches for himself, he makes a fuss even if I spend $1 on a snack. Insisting that a housewife doesn't need pocket money, I have to report to Tom and get permission for every expense, whether it's a trip to the salon or buying clothes. One pair of jeans should be enough, right? "You're buying another one?" "I need a warm one for winter. Fine to buy it cheap. And I want to get a haircut. Can I go to the salon every 2 months to maintain my hairstyle?" "Huh? What's the point of you dressing up? Keep your long hair as it is, then you only need a haircut every 6 months. I won't allow it, so I'm only allowed to buy cheap makeup from dollar stores. Even when I plead to change to better products because my skin is getting rough, he doesn't listen. Furthermore, the household budget he gives me is not enough to cover our expenses. The budget he gives me is a third of the average. No wonder our nutrition is unbalanced." When I complained, Tom just shrugged it off. "They managed with this amount on that TV budgeting show, but that lady's family owned a farm and she got vegetables and rice from them. It's impossible with the high cost of living here. Managing that is your job, isn't it?" I was frustrated not just by his stinginess with the household budget, but also by his attitude towards my father's funeral contribution. When my father, who had been ill, passed away, Tom blatantly showed his reluctance. We don't need to give a funeral contribution, right? Anyone attending the funeral, other than the immediate family, gives a contribution. Boom. Then use your savings. I'm not involved. He said this to me, tears streaked and preparing for the funeral in my mourning clothes. His complete lack of consideration for me infuriated me. I don't intend to ask for your contribution, so don't worry. Good. But wait, do Mike and I really have to go? It's gonna ruin our long weekend. Such a drag. Really, Dad? I was planning to play a new video game. Though they complained, I never doubted they would attend. However, when Tom and Mike finally showed up late, they didn't greet my mother or relatives. My exhausted mother didn't have the energy to criticize them, but my relatives were furious. What is Tom thinking? It is too cold-hearted for his father-in-law's funeral. And Mike, after receiving so many gifts and money from your father, I apologized profusely to my relatives, feeling my affection for them rapidly cooling. Tom, in his stylish suits, and Mike, attending a prestigious private university, were popular in the neighborhood as a handsome father-son duo. But at home, they did nothing but spew verbal abuse at me. Instead of coming straight home after work or school, they would wander around, returning with the scent of lipstick and perfume. While they did whatever they pleased, they treated me like a maid, demanding luxurious meals despite the meager food budget. Recently, when I served dishes made with chicken or pork, Mike and Tom would glare at me disdainfully and lash out. Don't you want to serve a good meal to a husband who's been working all day? If I get sick eating this poor man's food, how are you going to take responsibility? Do you even consider yourself a mother? I can make tasty meals even with chicken or pork. And if you are picky about eating vegetables and fish, you will end up ruining your health. We are saying we would eat it if it was high-end seafood. Stop yapping if you can't satisfy us with your cooking. I don't need to be lectured by you. They used to eat despite complaining, but recently they have started leaving food untouched. Yet if I don't cook, they berate me for slacking off as a wife. It's such a waste, so I end up eating it for breakfast or lunch the next day, wondering who I'm cooking for as tears well up in my eyes. As for their meals, they get by with store-bought lunches, ramen noodles, and snack foods. Eventually, Tom was diagnosed as pre-diabetic during a company health check, and Mike started gaining weight. It was a predictable outcome. Then they lashed out at me. How dare you as a wife make your husband and son sick? We don't need a useless woman like you. Let's get a divorce. Then I'll leave. I agreed readily, which took them by surprise. Are you okay with that, being jobless? You've been living off me. How will you survive now? Don't worry about me. I'll sign the divorce papers later and send them to you. Just leave my stuff until the movers come to pick it up. Nobody's gonna take your junk. Tom sneered. Ah, you'll regret leaving a handsome, high-earning guy like me. You won't find another kind husband who would let you be a housewife with 3 meals and naps. Right? You've been living in luxury off Dad's money. You'll struggle now. While I packed my clothes in a suitcase, Tom and Mike kept ranting. I envied how highly Tom thought of himself. During our dating days, this overconfidence seemed shining and confident. You're going back to your mom's, right? Say hi to her, living on her pension. You two will be living the poor life. Hey Mike, I bet they'll end up on welfare. Tom's prediction made Mike laugh out loud. You already reek of poverty. Combined with Grandma, they'll be the ultimate pair. The recent funeral was so stingy it felt like poverty was seeping in. I thought the same. Call it a family funeral or a poor man's funeral. I want a grand event, Mike. Got it, Dad. But for us, poverty is like a different world, with Dad in a major corporation and me at a prestigious university. I was boiling with anger at their audacity, but realized it was pointless to react and let it all slide. Returning home, I confided in my mom, who lowered her voice. I sensed something was off with Tom and Mike at the funeral, but I didn't want to intrude too much into my daughter's family. Plus, with your father's illness, I know you couldn't speak up. I'm sorry for suddenly showing up. It's fine. I've been lonely without someone to talk to. Why don't you stay here? Thanks. But once I get my job on track, I'm planning to move to an apartment. While I appreciated my mom's concern, living together might make me too dependent. Living nearby and visiting occasionally seemed like the right balance. Tom and Mike mocked me for being jobless, but in reality, I had been working from home. It all started with my budget cooking blog. Receiving many positive comments, I boldly launched a cooking website which quickly gained a readership and became popular online. Then an editor from a major publishing house approached me, and now I am slowly preparing to publish a cookbook. Thanks to this, I have been too busy to dwell on the divorce, and days flew by. One day my phone rang incessantly. Pausing from stir-frying ingredients, I answered, "Hello? Hey, what's this about alimony?" I sighed, expecting this topic. "You and Mike hurled enough abuse at me, didn't you?" "Oh, never mind," I thought. Relief in his voice, Tom abruptly continued, "I haven't cheated on you or anything." Again, wait, did you record our verbal abuse? Your memory alone won't cut it. I've noted everything in a journal, in detail. Try filing for alimony then. Poor people always talk about money. Let's see if you can actually get it. Tom snapped and hung up the phone. After finishing cooking, I went to a private investigator and requested an investigation into Tom's behavior. Soon his affair with a coworker was uncovered. The day after I sent photos and the investigation report to his company, Tom called me again. "You're so low, exposing it to my company. My furious manager reported it to the higher-ups, and now I'm fired." "Oh, wasn't the woman his daughter?" "You should have known better than to have an affair, given how strict they are about such matters." I chuckled. "But you must be fine, right? You are so stingy with living expenses, you must have plenty of savings. I bet you and Mike are living it up." Mike moved into a dorm for college this spring because commuting was tough. Damn, with the prepaid dorm fees and the mortgage, it's a lot. My savings got drained by that woman. She was two-timing me with a younger guy. Sounds tough, but that's none of my business. Oh, and about my alimony, plus half the value of the apartment for property division, please transfer it to my account once the claim arrives. Tom was ranting over the phone, but I hung up without bothering. A few days later, while returning from shopping downtown, I bumped into Mike. Dressed in flashy fashion with multiple piercings and blonde hair, he was noticeable from afar. Spotting me, he raised his hand in greeting. "Hey, I heard you're on welfare now." I was surprised. "You're mistaking me for someone else." "Don't pretend," Mike said with a twisted smile. "Any jobless old lady like you would end up there. If you had just obeyed Dad and me, you could still be living comfortably." "It's pathetic," I retorted. "Receiving welfare is a citizen's right. We could all need it someday due to illness or accidents. It's wrong to look down on it." Yeah. "So you're getting it too, huh?" Ignoring his smirk, Mike pointed his finger at me. "Listen, you and I are done. Don't come begging to me, I won't lend you a penny. Remember that." Just as I was about to retort, he turned his back and disappeared into the crowd. I bowed my head and trembled my shoulders, feeling the stares of passers-by. I couldn't help it, the situation was too absurd, and I couldn't suppress my laughter. Poor thing, he knows nothing. I'm curious to see his reaction when he finds out the truth. A few days later, waking up, I found a ridiculous number of missed calls from Mike. Reluctantly calling back, he yelled furiously, "You tricked me. What are you talking about? I heard from my cousin. You got 3 luxury condos from Grandpa's inheritance and are living comfortably. Hiding that during the divorce is low. My personal assets. Why should I tell you or Tom? It's marital property. You should have divided it with Dad. Too bad it became mine after the divorce proceedings. So I can't give it to Tom. I had known it was mine by my father's will, but I delayed the proceedings to avoid sharing with Tom." Mike then raged, "You're rich and still receiving welfare? I'm reporting you to the authorities right now. Feel free. The one receiving it is Tom, though." Mike fell silent. "What? I told you it's not me? Are you listening?" I explained it like talking to a child. To be honest, even without the inheritance, I can live well. I have income from my cooking website and book sales, which I started secretly. But Tom spent all his money on his affair and has many debts. After being fired, he has no income. "Mike, are you there?" "Dad's on welfare." "No way." I pulled the phone away from my ear as Mike screamed. Waiting for him to calm down, I continued the conversation. "You really haven't heard, have you? Tom's too proud to tell his son." A relative who Tom asked for money told me that he was evicted for not paying his apartment rent, and now he's unemployed, holed up in a rundown apartment. If you're worried, why don't you reach out to him? For a while, there was silence on the other end of the phone. After a few minutes, Mike spoke resentfully. You're cold. After all, Dad did for you, don't you feel any gratitude? You have money, you should give it to him. Why should I? Ever since we got married, it's been nothing but unpleasant. I don't feel indebted to him. I responded coolly. If you're so concerned, why don't you lend him money? You have a job. I don't have any savings. The money from my job, well, it goes to hanging out with friends. Mike's tone faltered and I smirked. You've been partying quite lavishly. As a student, you shouldn't be borrowing money to go to clubs. How did you know that? I saw you across the street the other day, right after we parted. You met up with a club hostess and went into a luxury store. Plus, I found a club membership card at home, and using my credit card without permission is out of the question. Mike stumbled over his words, trembling. It's unfair. You got all those fancy condos from Grandpa and Dad, and I got nothing. This is discrimination. Okay. The bill for the credit card is coming soon, so make sure you pay it. The call ended before I finished speaking. I sighed and ended the call as well. I thought it was over. But a few months later, Tom and Mike showed up unannounced at my parents' house. When the doorbell rang persistently, I answered the intercom to find them there. Expecting they had come to borrow money, I let them into the house to avoid causing a scene outside. Tom and Mike's appearance had drastically changed from their once stylish looks to worn shirts and dirty pants. Their eyes lacked vitality and they looked haggard. Yet, they still had the energy to be sarcastic. Upon entering the living room, Tom looked around and sneered. Same old shabby house. Why don't you sell those condos and rebuild this place? Do something nice for your mother living on a meager pension? This is the house of Dad's memories, so it's fine as is. More importantly, when are you two gonna pay back the money? You're past the deadline. Tom lifted his chin and arrogantly proposed. Susan, I'll forgive you now, so let's remarry. What? You started a cooking site, right? If you can handle the housework perfectly, I'll even let you work. So come back. Being kind enough to forgive a wife who abandoned her husband and child, Dad is generous. So, Mom, why don't you live with Dad again? It must be insecure for two women living alone. I was speechless. Then rage surged within me. Don't you dare mock me. How much more do you need to ridicule me before you're satisfied? I yelled, my anger erupting at Tom and Mike. After treating me like a housemaid, hurling abuse at me, and not giving me enough for living expenses, you now want me back because I inherited the condos? That's absurd. What, you plan to abandon us? Rich people really are stingy. Knowing we're struggling for money, yet still demanding payment. You're heartless. You were poor just a while ago. Don't get too full of yourself. As we were arguing, my mother returned from shopping. Immediately, Tom and Mike started fawning over her. Please lend us some money. We'll probably pay it back. And isn't it unfair that only Susan got her dad's inheritance? Give me one of those condos too. Grandma, long time no see. How have you been? Please persuade Mom to remarry Dad. He does, but Mom's being stubborn. Surprised by Tom and Mike's sudden flattery, my mother's expression changed after hearing their words. She put down her shopping bag on the refrigerator's floor and took a deep breath. So shameless, both of you. What? What do you mean? Learn some shame, she exclaimed loudly. Tom and Mike were taken aback, understandably confused, as my mother usually spoke softly. She glared sharply at them and sternly said, I've heard everything about the divorce from Susan. How dare you show up here like this? Oh, come on. Susan's exaggerating. You should hear our side. Yeah, Grandma. Mom tends to lie quite a bit. I remember very well how you both behaved at my husband's funeral. My mother interrupted, continuing in a stern tone. You arrived late, didn't greet me or the relatives, and just yawned throughout the service. You left before the coffin was sent off. After behaving like that, you have the nerve to ask for his inheritance? She drove Tom and Mike to the entrance, glaring fiercely at them. We're strangers now. Don't you ever come here again? If you do, I'll call the police. She pushed them out, still in their socks, threw their shoes at their feet, and locked the door immediately. Tom, who had been reluctant to pay me, eventually transferred the money to my account, advised by his lawyer that a lawsuit would cost even more. However, since he hadn't found a job since being fired, his parents had to cover for him after hearing about his situation from relatives. They visited my parents' home, apologizing for the trouble Tom caused. After giving up on finding a new job, Tom returned to his hometown under the pretext of helping out with his family's farm. However, the reason for his divorce became common knowledge throughout the village, and people from little kids to the elderly were aware of it. Elderly people would often point and laugh at him while he helped in his parents' fields. "There's stingy Uncle Tom," they would say. Despite having a degree from a prestigious university and a job at a big corporation, he was seen as no good because his wife left him due to his reckless spending. This was also the reason for his previous divorce. It seemed that he would never change. Being ridiculed by the townspeople was infuriating. I wanted to show them up by remarrying. I eventually got so fed up with the persistent messages that I blocked Tom's contact. His affair partner had already left him, as it seems that the end of their relationship coincided with the end of his money. I hired a private investigator to track down this affair partner and made sure they paid alimony properly. As for Mike, I made him reimburse the money he had recklessly spent using my credit card. Despite being enrolled in a prestigious university and on track to follow in his father's footsteps as an elite, his constant skipping of classes to hang out led to him dropping too many credits and being expelled. His friends and girlfriends were concerned, but Mike's arrogant comments out of sheer bravado led to everyone turning their backs on him. This eventually led to a huge fight with Tom, who said, "You're my son and you won't even help pay off my debts." Now they are apparently estranged. Mike now lives alone in a small apartment, making ends meet with part-time jobs. He is unable to freely buy things and has to cut down on living expenses despite having an income. He is subjected to daily sarcasm, but that is all in the past now, and I feel refreshed. My cooking website is doing well, and I am about to publish a book, so I have moved to the top floor of a high-rise condo, which is part of my father's inheritance. My mother is still healthy, but she is already 73 years old. The high-rise is close to my childhood home, making it perfect for quickly getting to my mother if anything happens. I am planning a surprise spa trip for her upcoming birthday. Although my marriage was a failure, I still want to maintain a good relationship with my mother. My name is Emily, and I am a regular 26-year-old office worker. I am average in looks, intelligence, and personality, with maybe a bit of a strong will. That is how I introduced myself as the group date began. The date was organized by some women from the department next to mine, with men from a slightly larger company than ours. It was supposed to be 4-on-4, but I was invited to even out the numbers when someone dropped out. I am not stunningly beautiful, but I'm not ugly enough to kill the mood either. I am just good enough at reading the room for a group date. I am currently single and did not really expect to find someone special here. The venue was a casual Italian restaurant, so I joined with my appetite as the priority. As soon as the date started, it was clear that the other 3 women were also here for the food. 3 women were targeting 2 guys who were tall and somewhat resembled Korean pop stars. The other 2 men were a plain-looking guy with glasses and a big, muscular guy. The muscular man sitting in front of me introduced himself as Ryan. I could tell from his well-developed pectorals and biceps, even under his shirt and his thick beard. He was totally my type. You see, I've always liked strong, muscular men, not the slender, handsome types. Like rugby players, for example. Perfect. He doesn't have to ride on a white horse. In fact, I'd prefer a man who could carry the horse himself. That's also why I'm often invited to these dates. My tastes rarely overlap with the other women. Wow, impressive muscles. Do you play any sports? I started the conversation. I used to play rugby in college. Now it's mostly just gym workouts. Bingo, I thought to myself. Ryan, like me, joined the date focusing more on food. He didn't actively engage in conversation with the women, and just enjoyed the delicious food. I admired the way he ate. "You're Emily, right?" Ryan joined in the conversation. Do you play any sports? Can you tell? I'm also into working out. Ah, I thought so. You're in great shape, Ryan said with a bright laugh. His laugh and voice were just my type. We hit it off, talking about working out, our gyms and muscles. The other participants seemed a bit taken aback, but we didn't mind. Ryan and I exchanged numbers and agreed to work out together, sometime. It seems that the only couple who got together at the mixer that day was Ryan and me. Ryan is a year older than me, at 27. He's quite tall and muscular, standing at 6 feet 1 inch and weighing 198 pounds, while I'm 5 feet 5 inches and weigh 125 pounds. Many tall men prefer petite and delicate women, but Ryan wasn't like that. He seemed genuinely happy that we shared a passion for working out. In this way, Ryan and I, who met under such circumstances, not only went on workout dates, but also went to movies and had meals together, just like any other couple. We got to the point where we'd casually talk about things like, when I get married, I want to have a workout machine in the living room. And I'd reply, then we'll need to rent a place with a spacious living room. When I introduced Ryan to my family, they instantly liked him. His charm and thoughtfulness made it seem like our wedding was just around the corner. Next week I'm visiting Ryan's home. He lost his mother when he was young and was raised by his sister. Raised by his sister, who is 7 years older than him. I thought of her as a potentially challenging sister-in-law, but less intimidating than a mother-in-law. When I arrived, a bit nervous, I was greeted by Ryan's stunningly beautiful sister, Layla. Layla, being 7 years older than me, would be in her mid-30s. But she's so stunningly beautiful that even I, a woman, can't help but be mesmerized by her. She has a softer, more refined version of Ryan's face, about the same height as me, but so slender that I wonder if she has any muscles at all, and her waist-length black hair is gorgeous. Ryan's dad is a sturdy man with thick eyebrows, just like Ryan. Layla entertained us with homemade lavish scattered sushi, but that's when a problem arose. I'm allergic to shellfish. Sorry, Layla. I'm allergic to crabs and shrimp. I won't have a severe reaction unless I eat a lot, but I definitely can't eat the generous amount of shrimp and crab on top of the sushi. Huh? Didn't I tell you, sis? Ryan knew about my allergy, since we've had several dining dates. Nope, I didn't hear about it. Sorry, Emily. It's okay. Ryan, can you take these crabs and shrimp? When I said that, Ryan replied with an enthusiastic, "Oh, gladly," and picked the crabs and shrimp from my dish with chopsticks, transferring them to his own. At that moment, I felt Layla's gaze intensify, but I didn't pay much attention to it. From now on, I'll be more careful. But if you marry Emily, Ryan, you won't be able to eat crab or shrimp anymore. When Layla said that, it dawned on me that I probably wouldn't willingly use ingredients I'm allergic to. Feeling a bit guilty, Layla added as if to rub it in. Such a shame, you love them so much. Oh, was she blaming me? I was taken aback, but then Ryan said, "It's all good, all good. I can eat crab and shrimp when we go out. Heck, I can come here to eat them." His cheerful response was a relief. While I was excusing myself, Layla kept saying things like, "Ryan has loved crab and shrimp since he was a kid, and as long as I'm here to make them, I'll make a lot for you," which made me realize that I wasn't exactly welcomed. Moreover, as we were leaving and Ryan headed to the front door, Layla followed, saying, "Even after you get married, you're always welcome here, really." Maybe she thought I was taking him away from her. "Ryan, I don't think your sister thinks very highly of me. I had no idea you loved crab and shrimp so much." As I said this dejectedly, Ryan comforted me. "Well, yeah, I like crab and shrimp, but you don't need to worry about my sister too much. She's a bit overprotective, you know? She's been saying that cooking for me is her life. Ever since our mom passed away, I wondered if that was just a mild case of overprotectiveness. After all, she had been like a mother to him since they lost their mom, so maybe she was a supercharged version of a mother-in-law. But Layla has this really handsome boyfriend. He's beyond movie star handsome, the kind that makes almost any woman's heart flutter. Not that I find him all that great. Her boyfriend Hendrik is 33 and runs a nightclub. Back when Layla used to work, she was dragged to his nightclub by a female colleague. Hendrik fell for Layla and then decided to strike out on his own and become a business owner. Ryan said Hendrik is totally smitten with Layla. Even Dad, who was initially against it, seems to have come around, saying it's okay because he's not just an employee, but a business owner. We even work out together. He says he wants to put on a moderate amount of muscle. Layla, Hendrik, Ryan, and I have had dinner together before. Once when I was about to put lemon and sauce on Ryan's fried shrimp, Layla sharply said, "Hey, Ryan eats his fried food with soy sauce." Ryan, trying to smooth things over, said, "Oh, it's fine." Emily suggested trying lemon and sauce, and it turned out to be tasty. I can go with soy sauce or tartar sauce, but lately I prefer lemon and sauce. Despite his efforts, Layla seemed displeased. Scenes like this happened more than once. Layla would make a face whenever topics like Ryan enjoying foreign dramas influenced by me or his changing taste in clothes came up. Then there were some slightly odd occurrences. Whenever we had a meal at Ryan's house, I often ended up with allergic hives. Of course, since that incident, I've never visibly seen crab or shrimp in the dishes. However, if the dishes contained crushed or mixed crab or shrimp extracts, I wouldn't notice. Thinking this couldn't be a coincidence, I offered to help with the cooking, given that I'm more than just a guest, but Layla stubbornly refused. Then Emily, "You can help with the dishes," she said, but she hovered so close that I couldn't check anything. So, casually I mentioned I got hives again after dining here the other day, to which she replied, "That's strange. I didn't use any crab or shrimp. Emily, do you have other allergies?" Her tone almost made it sound like it was my fault. Furthermore, she said, "With so many allergies, it'll be tough cooking for Ryan if you live together. I'm worried about him focusing entirely on Ryan's needs, not mine. For the record, I don't have any other allergies. I've had tests done." Even when I told her this, Layla wouldn't believe me. I realized then that it wasn't just a mild case of overprotectiveness, but rather a deep-seated resentment towards me. It wasn't about me being unsuitable or disliked. It was that Layla didn't want Ryan to drift away from her. But Layla is 35 years old. She can't stay overprotective forever. Luckily, she has Hendrik, who is head over heels for her. Maybe he could help sort things out. Hey, aren't Layla and Hendrik getting married? I thought they'd be first in line. I asked Ryan. You think so, right? I've said that many times, but she claims she can't think about it until I'm married and settled, he replied. Ryan said that, but it seemed like Layla herself was the one hindering their marriage. Then an incident happened. We were dining out, the four of us, invited by Layla and Hendrik. When Ryan got up to go to the bathroom, Layla followed shortly after, saying, "I'll be right back." Soon she returned, being almost carried by Ryan. "I'm sorry, I feel a bit unwell," she said, holding a handkerchief to her mouth and looking pained. Hendrik stood up, offering, "Are you okay? I'll take you home." But Layla declined, saying, "No, it's fine. We ordered a set menu, so you two will enjoy it. Ryan will take me home," and left with Ryan. Left behind, Hendrik and I felt a bit awkward, but the French course meal was waiting. I decided to prioritize my appetite and enjoy the meal. Hendrik just stared at me and said, "Emily, you're different. You're very fresh and attractive, with the kind of flattery you'd expect." Sure enough, he's good at complimenting women. I was impressed, but that wasn't all. To my surprise, Hendrik lightly held my hand and whispered in my ear, "Hey, how about we have some fun together?" I was taken aback. No. What's he thinking, especially after his girlfriend, who's sick, just went home? Isn't he totally into his sister Layla? I thought to myself, so what if he's super handsome? Does he think anyone would fall for being gazed at and having their hand held like this? All these thoughts raced through my mind at lightning speed. Come on, even as a joke, stop it. Layla would get mad if she knew, right? I tried to brush it off, but Hendrik's response was unexpected. He gave a meaningful smile and said, "She won't get mad. I have zero interest in handsome men, just so you know." I made my rejection clear. Hendrik then said, "I see. That's interesting, Emily," and laughed, not seeming offended at all. I shook off Hendrik's offer to take me home and quickly headed to the station to call Ryan. I really wanted to see Ryan. "What's up? Why call me out here?" I called Ryan to a karaoke box near the station. It was the only place I could think of where we could be alone. "Sorry. Oh, how is Layla feeling?" To be honest, I wasn't really worried. She perked right up as soon as she got home. Such a drama queen. We missed out on eating that rare French meal. As Ryan sighed, I dropped a bombshell. I got asked out by Hendrik after you left. Ryan's face turned serious as he said, "What? Why? But Hendrik is so into Layla, right? So I told him Layla would get mad, but he said she wouldn't." "What does that mean?" "No way." But then again, Ryan murmured, trying to recall something. What he told me next was unbelievable. He dated several women, but they all dumped him after meeting Layla. They all said they found someone else. I've seen those ex-girlfriends walking arm in arm with a guy who looks a lot like Hendrik. I thought it was just someone who looked similar. I was horrified. Was Hendrik being asked by Layla to break up Ryan's relationships by seducing his girlfriends? This was no laughing matter. I never mentioned it to Ryan, but I told him clearly now. After eating Layla's cooking, I often got hives despite not being allergic to anything but shellfish. I understand Layla not wanting to let go of you, Ryan, but this isn't good for any of us. Yeah, you're right. Sorry, Emily, for dragging you into this mess. I can't believe Layla would go that far. Ryan seemed really shaken, but my future was at stake too. If you choose Layla, I won't see you anymore, I said firmly. Ryan also spoke decisively. I choose you, Emily. Let's deal with Layla together. If I leave that house, she can't do anything more. And he added, feelingly, I'm just glad you're not into handsome men. I thought it was all my fault I kept getting dumped. I felt sorry for him, but couldn't help smiling a little. This strengthened our bond and we started planning for marriage. After that day, I stopped visiting Ryan's house. I was making smooth progress with the wedding preparations, but it's not like I wasn't nervous. Just a quick search online, and you'll find tons of horror stories about things going wrong at weddings and receptions. It's unlikely, but better safe than sorry. I asked the planner, do problems often happen on the wedding day? And she quickly picked up on my anxiety, asking, is there something you're worried about? So I was able to open up and discuss my concerns. Finally, the day of the wedding arrived. Hoping that everything would go smoothly, I entered the dressing room only to be met with a shocking sight. There was Ryan's sister, tearing a wedding dress to shreds with a large cutter knife. Trampled accessories lay scattered at her feet. At her feet, I had anticipated some interference, like spilling water or coffee on the dress. But cutting it with a cutter? I hadn't expected that. It's all ruined now, she said with a smile on her beautiful face. But you do know that's all rented, right? Of course it is. Unless you're incredibly wealthy, you don't custom-make wedding dresses. Her beautiful smile twisted slightly. What? But you can't have a wedding without a dress. Well, I anticipated something like this and had reserved 2 dresses. I preferred the other dress, but it can't be helped, I said as calmly as I could. Then Ryan knocked and entered the dressing room. He grasped the situation immediately and stammered, Sister, what have you done? The planner with us said, those dresses and accessories belong to our venue. Should I report this as property damage? I'll pay for everything. I don't want to make a criminal out of a family member on my wedding day, Ryan said. Hearing the word criminal from Ryan's mouth, his sister finally seemed to grasp the situation, screaming, Criminal? I'm just opposed to this marriage, Layla. Unfortunately, we're already legally married. Even if we cancel today's ceremony, we are still husband and wife. Hearing this, his sister froze, then collapsed, muttering, No. I didn't know. It can't be. Ryan then added, Please, sister. Don't make me hate you more than I already do. At his words, she broke down, crying loudly like a child. Ryan. While his sister continued crying, Ryan escorted her out of the room, and I hurriedly finished my makeup and put on the spare dress. By then, my family and Ryan's father had arrived at the venue. Hendrik also showed up, saying, she really did it. I wondered why he hadn't stopped her if he saw it coming, but then again, he was part of the scheme, so of course he wouldn't. Well, nobody could have stopped her anyway. After handing over Layla, who kept crying, to Hendrik, Ryan and I explained the situation to our parents. Everyone was a bit panicked, but since we were calm, we all agreed, let's just get through today's wedding and reception. Throughout the wedding, his sister continued to cry, and during the reception, she kept a handkerchief to her eyes. To those Unaware of the situation, it seemed like she was just sad about her brother getting married. After the wedding and reception went off without a hitch, Ryan and I stayed overnight at a hotel in New York and then left for our honeymoon, a week-long trip to Italy. Planning to eat our way through it. For Layla, Ryan's words, "Please don't make me dislike you any more than this," must have been the greatest punishment of all. 3 months later, Hendrik showed up at our new home, holding a large bouquet of flowers. Ryan hadn't been home since moving out. He hadn't met his sister since then. She had called occasionally, but he coldly dismissed her. Still, Ryan seemed concerned and asked Hendrik about his sister-in-law's condition, to which he received an unexpected reply. "Yeah, I've been thinking about breaking up." What? Hendrik was so deeply in love that he did such a thing at her request? As I was surprised, he said she's become like an empty shell since then. She's not the girl I fell for anymore. I loved how she was so passionate and tried hard for Ryan. It was a somewhat understandable yet confusing reason, but I wanted Hendrik to stay by her side. If he didn't, who knows when she might cause us trouble again. So why don't you get married and have kids? If a boy who looks like Ryan is born, she'll probably get obsessed and try hard again. I admit I can be quite a nasty woman, totally calculating, but I absolutely want to protect my current life. Because right now I'm pregnant, and if the child born resembles Ryan, I can't shake off this anxiety. Hendrik, surprisingly upbeat, responded to my rash suggestion. "Oh, I hadn't thought of that. I've never considered marriage before, but I'll think about it. Thanks." And just like that, a month later, they registered their marriage. His enthusiasm and decisiveness were extraordinary. The boy who came to Ryan and me looked just like me. Maybe Layla won't pay him any mind, I thought. I never liked kids much, but my own child is exceptionally cute. Now I can somewhat understand why his sister was so fixated on Ryan. "Emily, don't become like my sister," Ryan said with a slightly sad and complex expression. As for his sister and her husband, they quickly got pregnant and had a baby as planned. The baby, born to a stunningly beautiful couple, Hendrik and Layla, wasn't a boy resembling Ryan, but a precious little girl. Unexpectedly, it was Hendrik who became utterly smitten with his daughter. He sends us pictures of her growing cuter by the day without us asking. Their little angel, who just turned 1, is becoming more adorable. In contrast, our mischievous 2-year-old son is like a little monster, but that's what makes him so lovable. Hendrik often says things like, "I'm never letting her get married. If she gets a boyfriend, I'll do whatever it takes to drive him away." In a way, they're a couple cut from the same cloth. So it seems like they constantly argue about their daughter, but frankly, it's none of my business. I do wonder why all the photos he sends are only of his daughter and not a family portrait. But again, that's not my concern. Because in 2 months, I'm due to give birth to twins. And with a mischievous little monster already taking up so much of my time, I can't afford to worry about other families. We rented a spacious living room and installed a training machine, but now Ryan is the only one using it. I plan to use it to get rid of my post-pregnancy weight, but I often find it covered with laundry. Running around with kids requires strength and stamina. I'm glad I've been working out. If we have more kids, it might be dangerous. We should put away the machine and go to the gym together. But hey, even without the machine, we can still work out, said Ryan, doing squats while carrying our son on his back. I love Ryan for saying things like that. So I'm pretty sure I won't become like his sister. I want our children to experience the happiness of living with a wonderful partner, just like me. My name is Catherine Smith. I remarried when my husband's son was 16 years old. Yes, my husband was a divorced man with a child. Since I am unable to have children, I was happy to have a son, and for the past 12 years I have raised him desperately as my own child. That son, Austin, said he was getting married and brought his girlfriend home. I'm thinking of marrying this person, he said. She had an innocent look, and I thought she would make a good wife for Austin. I was moved to tears of joy. However, my son then said I'm going to live with my fiancé's family. Being an only child, I had assumed he would live with us after getting married, so this was quite a shock. Living together? Why not? I asked. There's no problem with me living with my fiancé's family, right? That was certainly true. We have a house, but it's just a regular mass-produced home. There's nothing special to inherit. But you are an only child. She's an only child too. And though our family has nothing to inherit, her family has a distinguished lineage. It makes more sense for me to live with them. Yes, our family has been running a traditional sweet shop for generations. My father is the president of the company. I see. In that case, it's understandable for you to live with them. And Dad, you have this person, Austin said, pointing at me. Hearing this, my son's fiancée didn't get angry or say anything like, "What a thing to say to your own parents." Instead, she just laughed mockingly. "It's okay. This person is just a stepmother." "Stepmother?" I asked, confused. "Yes, my father's second wife." "Really? A second marriage? That's problematic." "Problematic?" "Yeah. Did you lose your wife?" "No, we divorced. That's even worse. My parents are very conservative and don't accept divorce. They think that remarriage indicates an immoral person. If they know about it, they might not approve of our marriage. Well, it's the truth. Then, let's just say your wife passed away." "Are you kidding? You raised Austin alone after your wife's death. My parents would respect that and would be even more impressed with how well you raised Austin." "But what about this person? Remarriage is also frowned upon. My parents believe in only one marriage for life. If they learn about a second marriage, they won't approve of our marriage. Well then, she doesn't need to come to the family meeting." "What? I see. Well, we have to compromise. After all, her family is well established and prestigious. We can't argue against that. This is so sad." My husband was over the moon knowing that my son Austin's fiancée came from a prestigious family. He suggested that it would be best if I, as his stepmother, didn't attend the wedding. "So, I guess you are definitely not attending the wedding, right? I wouldn't want the engagement called off because of you." "I've been looking forward to my son's wedding after raising him for all these years. It can't be helped, it's for the sake of our son. You can just look at the pictures later. How could you? What will we do after the wedding when we see each other? Just say you're our housekeeper." "Exactly. It's not like I need you around. Plus, we'll avoid any mother-in-law and daughter-in-law conflicts." "I wouldn't do such a thing. You never know. Maybe we should just divorce, you know?" "Divorce? Yeah. If we're divorced, the lie becomes the truth. We needed you for cleaning and cooking until now, but with May around, we don't need you anymore." "Hey, you might live with them, but what about me? I'll be alone in this house." "Well, maybe we should really make her the housekeeper. I don't want her acting like a parent." "That's true. That's just, how can you say such things? I endured everything for 12 years because I thought of him as my own child. But from my son's perspective, I was just someone to clean and cook. What was the point of my 12 years? Was it all just self-indulgence? So it's settled then. The stepmom won't come to the family meeting. We'll say you raised Austin alone after your wife passed away. That works, right?" "Yes, of course. We found out the truth before the family meeting. Otherwise, the wedding might have been called off because of the stepmother. I definitely don't want a stepmother acting like a mother-in-law. How can people be like this? It can't be helped. If you were really a mother, you'd understand. It's for the happiness of our son. If you can't endure this, you're not fit to be a parent." "Is that so? Is that how it is?" I felt like everyone was against me. What was I for all these years? 12 years. Enough with the 12 years. 12 years. Alright, thanks for the 12 years of service. The fake is no longer needed, so don't come to the family meeting. Of course, if you come and the engagement is broken, I'll resent you for the rest of my life." What? Rejected by everyone, I was left speechless by the shock. On the day of the family meeting, it was a dinner at a fancy restaurant. Told not to participate, I watched the proceedings from a distance. "So, your wife passed away early, and you raised your child alone. That must have been tough." As planned, my husband was playing the role of a grieving widower whose wife had passed away before him. Yes, well, there were various things, but he managed to grow up somehow. Is that so? As the conversation about my husband being a hard-working man continued, a gaudy woman resembling a bar owner approached the table. "Austin, long time no see. You've grown so big and respectable." She looked quite flashy. As she suddenly appeared, May's family was taken aback, while my husband and son recognizing her as their ex-wife and real mother, remained silent. Who might you be? I'm this kid's real mother. Call me Christy." With that, Christy took a seat and called over a waiter. "Hey, add another place here." The waiter brought the food. "The food here is really good. Nice choice of restaurant, as expected. What is this all about?" "I heard today was my son's family meeting. Since a stepmother wouldn't do, I, his real mother, came." "Stepmother? What do you mean?" My husband in Austin shrank, unable to speak. Christy took over the conversation. "No, this must be some mistake. You're at the wrong table. This is extremely rude. Please leave at once. What are you trying to act all important for? I won't let you forget your ex-wife. I don't know you. I'm his ex-wife and this child's mother. I wanted to take him with me, but his parents were so insistent. They said to leave the child, so I left him crying. It was tough. Oh, but the divorce wasn't because of a mother-in-law issue, by the way. We were told that his mother had passed away." "Yes, my wife passed away. That's right, she's a complete stranger." "I don't know you. Please leave. Today is an important day. Get up and leave, old lady." "Hey, Austin. Calling her an old lady?" "Sorry, I'm shocked he turned out so rude. Are you really his mother?" "Of course. Then about her being dead? It's all pretense. They probably thought it sounded better than admitting to a divorce." "How ridiculous. That's the kind of ridiculous thing they would do? By the way, did you cure your gambling addiction?" Christy turned to my husband and asked. In fact, he had a severe gambling addiction. I didn't know that until we got married. But since we were married and had a child, it wasn't easy to just leave. I stayed, even though life was hard, and most of his earnings went to gambling. I kept going because my son called me Mom. "You really had a terrible gambling addiction. Even when we were married, we couldn't eat because of your gambling. I thought we were going to starve to death. Did it get better after marrying your current wife? Or is it still going on? Don't talk about that here." "When else should I ask? It's not like we'll see each other often. If we were, I'd wait for another time, but that's not happening." Christy continued, addressing May's astonished parents. "The reason for our divorce was his gambling addiction. He had a terrible addiction. I married him without knowing. It was like marrying just to struggle. My parents kept telling me to divorce him, but we had a child, so it wasn't that simple. I tried hard, but we couldn't even eat. Eventually we divorced when the kid was small. Gambling addiction is hereditary, isn't it?" "Yes, there's a theory that it's hereditary. If there's a gambler in the family, 19% will develop a gambling addiction, compared to 5% otherwise. So maybe the son will develop it too." Yeah, I've heard that too. It gets worse with debt problems." "Debt?" "Yeah, they gamble even if they have to borrow money. That would be troublesome. So do you have any debts? Oh, but your current wife has been working hard for you, so maybe you don't have any." "Hey, stop it. Today is the family meeting, you know." "So what? Our marriage won't last if it's built on a lie, just like our current marriage. So did you quit? That is... I see. Maybe you even married your second wife without telling her the truth. That's almost like fraud. You're really the worst. Stop it. Have you told this kid about his father's gambling addiction? You should, or your wife might suffer when you start gambling. That is, don't tell me you think because her family is rich, they'll cover your gambling debts. I'm worried because your father would think something that awful. I'm not thinking anything like that." "Well, good if you're not. The food here is really delicious. Everyone should eat and enjoy. By the way, what happened to your parents?" "They passed away 13 years ago." "I see. So you remarried 12 years ago. Typical, finding someone to take care of you. You can't manage the house on your own. Without a wife, it would be a total mess. Well, men usually aren't good at tidying up. Why did you even come? I didn't invite you. Maybe it was Christy's blatant behavior, but my husband finally snapped back at her. Then without any shame, Christy brought up my name. Your second wife, Catherine, told me." "What? Catherine did?" "Yes. Why would you and Catherine? Catherine found me 12 years ago. She said no parent would abandon their child. I was so happy back then. You never sent a single photo, but Catherine contacted me. She sent me photos of Austin growing up and told me all about him. Then she said a stepmother wouldn't do for this family meeting. She was worried Austin would feel awkward, so she asked me to come. But this atmosphere is so tense. Feels like a bunch of liars together. Are you planning to get back with Austin's dad? No way. Austin has a wonderful mother. And I'm remarried too. I'm not giving up my current happiness. Marrying him would just mean suffering with his gambling. I even discussed it today with my husband. What kind of great mother is she? She's just a stepmother. You guys are underestimating her, and you're gonna regret it. Remember, she paid for the total remodel of that old house 10 years ago. Ever wonder where the money came from? I don't know how much you earn, but if she's gone, you're the one who's gonna be in trouble. But I don't care either way. There's no way I'll be in trouble. She doesn't even work. I'm the one paying for everything. If that's what you think, then fine. Sometimes you don't realize what you have until it's gone. You don't realize what you've lost until it's gone. You probably don't even understand how much she's done for you, desperately trying to fix your gambling addiction. And Austin, you never know when you might develop it. Mate, you better be prepared. Just because he hasn't yet doesn't mean he won't ever. Mind your own business. I'm different from my dad. I won't develop anything. I wonder why she even married you. She's great at cooking, perfect at housekeeping, a real paragon of a wife and mother. With such a good mother around, why did you keep quiet about being remarried? Lying that your wife had died? Your daughter said it was better that way. What? You went along with it just because she said so? Weren't you and Mom saying that while watching TV? Divorce is bad, remarriage is promiscuous? I don't remember saying that. That was while watching a drama. Oh, that was about the main character in the drama. Right, because we're both remarried. No way! You are the child from my previous marriage with my ex-husband. Seriously? But treating someone who raised you for 12 years as a nuisance. I can't let my daughter marry someone like that. You're right. Catherine is the best. She even cares about someone like me. And yet, they call her a fake mother. He's no good. She's really that wonderful? Of course. Christy then looked at me and gestured for me to come over. I approached the table and my husband and son were shocked. Why are you here? Weren't you supposed to be at home? I got worried and decided to watch secretly. See? She's wonderful. Worrying about someone else's child. With such a wonderful mother. But I think she's going to divorce soon. What? Why? She's been worried about the child for 12 years, devoted to a husband with a gambling addiction, and then called a fake. Of course, she's going to divorce. Right, Catherine? Yes, I'm not needed anymore. But I still worry about them. Don't worry, from now on, they can live on their own. They only thought of you as a housekeeper, so you don't need to care. You should live your own life. Okay, I don't mind you leaving, but I'm not paying you any alimony. Who do you think you are? I never expected you to pay. Besides, now I can support and even help Catherine. What do you mean? Back then we were dirt poor, but now I'm remarried. And he's rich, the CEO of a major corporation. I'm not lying. Which company? ABC Corporation, have you heard of it? ABC, isn't that a top name in the hotel industry? Yes, my husband is the CEO, so I can support Catherine no matter what. And I'm the vice president. Being the vice president of that company is a big deal. Maybe, but that's not important. So, Catherine, if you ever need anything, just let me know. But not you guys. Christy said that to my husband. Don't even ask for help. Be independent. Then Christy pulled out divorce papers. Strike while the iron is hot, right? Here's the divorce form. Sign it quickly. I'll witness it. You don't want to drag this out. Catherine is too kind. It's okay. I was planning to leave today anyway. I signed the divorce form. Now it's your turn. No need to think about it. You wanted to turn her into a housekeeper after all. Of course, I have no lingering feelings for such a woman. My husband quickly signed the divorce papers, perhaps out of pride. May's parents were clearly shocked to see him sign without any hesitation. They then announced, "We must decline this marriage proposal." After returning home, I packed my belongings without anyone stopping me and left the house. Christy was waiting outside and drove me to my new residence. I'm not sure if you'll like it, but I've arranged a new place for you. You can pay the rent when you're able to afford it. After all, it's our property. Later, my ex-husband and former son contacted me, angrily blaming me for the broken engagement. It's your fault the engagement was called off. If that marriage had gone through, I would have eventually become a president. I could have had an easy life. You ruined everything. Be quiet, Christy yelled as their voices came through the phone, on speaker. Do you think you have the right to speak to her like that? She's the reason you could barely get by. Yet you called her a nuisance, a fake, and now a housekeeper. She asked me to replace her because she was worried about Austin. And you turn it into a complaint. Blaming others has its limits. Well, it's still her fault the engagement was called off. If she hadn't called you, everything would have been fine. You mean you would have kept May's parents deceived? If you really wanted to marry, it wouldn't have ended. It's because it wasn't genuine that it fell apart. Cool your heads, you idiots. Christy hung up the phone. I agreed with Christy and wouldn't have been able to say it myself. Without her, I am grateful for her support. I ended the day on a positive note. However, a month later they contacted me again. Is Christy there? No, she's not. Well, there was a relieved tone in my ex-husband's voice. The full remodel fee hasn't been paid. Is that so? Just pay it then. I'm no longer involved, so please don't contact me about it. Can I afford it with my salary? If you quit gambling, maybe. That's impossible. You know that as well as I do. Yes, but it's no longer my concern. How did you manage before? I supplemented it with my income. In fact, I paid for the remodel and living expenses. How can that be? You aren't working. You just didn't know, but I was working too. What were you doing? I was doing handmade crafts. All your income went to gambling. So without you, I can't manage. You could if you stopped gambling. I can't stop, as I've told you. So you have no intention to overcome your gambling addiction. I want to, but it's impossible. I can't go a day without it, given his repeated insistence that it's impossible, and despite claiming he wants to change, it seemed clear he had no real intention to do so. You have to try your best. Anyway, it's no longer my concern. How much debt is left? Well, it will be cleared in about 17 years. 17 years? That's impossible. Please help me. I don't have that kind of money. Please send me some. I'm a stranger now, and wasn't I just a fake mother to your son? I can't help you. You need to handle it yourself. Please, I'm begging you. I can't even afford food. My ex-husband was pleading, trying to extract money from me, but after that phone call, Christy and I agreed that being firm was the best way to help him. If I coddled him, he would never change. I firmly cut off my ex-husband's pleading and ended the call. 6 months later, I heard that my ex-husband, who somehow managed to maintain his lifestyle, ultimately couldn't stop gambling and had to let go of the house. Austin, seeing his father so consumed by gambling, developed a gambling addiction himself. The two of them got deeply hooked on gambling, frequently visiting casinos ostensibly to increase their living expenses. This only worsened my ex-husband's gambling addiction, and he finally quit his job. Consequently, they couldn't even afford the basic living expenses. Despite living in a cheap apartment, their inability to pay rent due to gambling led them to become homeless, resorting to hotels. Soon they couldn't even afford the hotel fees. Unable to afford the hotel fees, they ended up borrowing money from loan sharks to continue gambling and chasing the dream of a big win. However, as their debts grew out of control, they tried to contact me again. Anticipating this, I had changed my phone number so they couldn't reach me. In desperation, they contacted Christy, but they had no chance of getting any money from her. With the cold season approaching, they were found huddled together in a corner of a park, unable to even pay for the hotel fees. Meanwhile, I continued to work on my passion for handmade crafts. Thanks to my perseverance and Christy's support, I was able to pay my rent and eventually open my own store. My crafts began to attract more customers, and my store became very successful. Now every day I create products filled with dreams for my many customers.